Hey there, my name is Matt Diavella, and you're listening to The Ground Up Show, the podcast where I talk with creatives about how to make shit happen. This week, I talk with Danny Nagel, a fashion designer and owner of the brand Daizy. We discuss making the leap from full-time employee to full-time business owner, the slow fashion movement to create ethical and sustainable clothing, and the crisis of authenticity on social media.
Like, on the outside, people thought, oh, this girl has it all together. She has everything you could want, and yet I was feeling miserable.
This podcast is made ad-free thanks to Patreon supporters. Go to patreon.com/Matt Diavella to support the show and get access to a dozen exclusive videos with new content coming every month. Again, that's patreon.com/Matt Diavella. Enjoy the show. Should we start?
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. Danny, just to get started out, can you give a little bit of an introduction? Because I know you wear many hats. So what is it that you do? How do you fill your days?
Many hats. So I am a t-shirt designer, and that's what most of my career has been in. But the past almost 3 years now, I've been working on my own brand called Daizy LA. It is a art apparel line with a mission to empower women and create conversation. And initially when I started the brand, I did all the designs, all the photography, all the everything, as you do when you're first starting up. And now it's grown a bit, so I'm able to explore fun things, like more like media and podcasts and stuff like that. But we're a small team and we love what we do. And
yeah, I think what's amazing about what you do now is this push towards slow fashion. A lot of people are becoming more and more aware of the fast fashion industry, of putting out new lines every single week and constantly re-upping and trying to keep up with trends. What has been your view of just the industry at large, being somebody who's worked within it, as well as now trying to kind of pave your own lane within the fashion industry?
What's really interesting with fast fashion is people were not educated on it until very recently. Even I've been in the fashion industry for almost 10 years. I started super young, and for a long time I had no idea, and I was working for a lot of these really terrible fast fashion companies, and one of them being Macy's. I was doing men's t-shirt designs for them, and I just remember like walking out into the warehouse and seeing like 5,000 units of this one t-shirt design I did that was just a dumb design, and I was like, where is this all gonna go? And that was kind of like the first time I realized like these 5,000 shirts aren't going to be around for more than a few years. It's some trendy t-shirt. It's going to be gone. Where is it going to go? And then I stumbled upon the documentary True Cost on Netflix.
Yeah, Andrew Morgan. Yeah, he was actually on the podcast.
Oh,
Andrew
amazing.
Morgan who made it. Yeah.
Yes. And when I watched it, I couldn't believe it. And I had been contributing to this terrible thing with no idea. I had no idea. And I was literally in the industry. So that was a huge wake-up call for me. Still working for other people, I didn't really have a lot of control over that. But I knew when I started my own company, I wanted to do it right and do it the best way that I could. But yeah, the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world, next to big oil, which is pretty bad. And a lot of people don't know it.
Bad company to be in.
Yeah, exactly. Not a good spot. But what's cool is with my brand, like we're very much about creating conversation and bringing up these tough topics and educating people on that. So alongside like us doing our best to create things ethically, we're able to teach people to shop and support these smaller brands. And we go one step further than a lot of even these smaller brands by making all of our shirts as they're ordered. Because one of the biggest reasons why the fashion industry is so wasteful is they have to predetermine how much stock of something they're going to make. There's minimums. They need to make hundreds and hundreds of units, and only like a certain percentage of them are going to sell. The rest of them they have to get rid of. and there's a huge waste. So instead we're doing small batch of, let's say I'm wearing like this short sleeve sweater in yellow. So we'll make like 10 of those and we'll have them sitting on the shelf, and once they're ordered, the graphic will be printed. And then we have a few different graphics that go on this body. But by doing that, we aren't creating anything that's sitting around unwanted that's going to go on sale. We're only creating things that are already ordered and wanted, and making as minimal waste as possible.
That's amazing. One thing that I remember, and something, an interview we did with Juliet Shore in Minimalism, was around the idea of fast fashion and the fact that clothing itself has lost its value. Where at one point you could go, you could actually trade your clothes as if it was a monetary value. But now if you wanted to get rid of your clothes, very few items retain their value. Maybe a leather jacket, maybe something that's like on the higher end, or maybe like a name brand. But even once it's out of style, a year or 2 years go by, you couldn't even give it away at a thrift shop for the most part, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, clothes lose their value like after a couple wears. People are not interested in wearing it. Nobody really wants it. I mean, there's just way too many clothes in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I also am a huge proponent of places like Crossroads or Buffalo Exchange, where you can sell your used clothes and buy used clothes from other people. And if I'm not wearing my own brand, which I do like 90% of the time, I usually am wearing something that's like secondhand. And I think that's a really great way for people who are on a budget to approach being more ethical with their fashion choices.
Well, yeah, because there's, like you said, there's just so much clothes that's already been made that if you are struggling, if you are on a budget, you can just pop into a thrift store and find something for you.
And with so many of these big fast fashion brands, one of the companies I worked full time for was Urban Outfitters, doing t-shirt graphics. And I just remember you would just try to come up with whatever phrase you think is going to sell. Like, there wasn't really a lot of thought or heart put into what you're doing or what the shirt or design means. And with Daizy, I try to put like a lot of thought and really make it a piece of art and something special, and use really nice fabrics and make it something people are going to like treasure and actually value as a piece of clothing that means something, as opposed to some throwaway shirt that says like spring break or something stupid on it.
Right.
Which I'm guilty of designing in the past.
Well, it's funny that you even mentioned that, because I experienced the same thing as a freelancer when I first got into minimalism. I was working with big brands like Reebok and Nike and making commercials and working on sneaker lines. And most people know how crazy sneaker culture is, where some people own 50, 100 pairs of sneakers. And it was hard in the beginning because you have to... And I don't think it's a bad thing, because we all have to make a living, right? But it's the idea of knowing, okay, I want to try to find a way around this to create something that really means something to me. And it sounds like you had that same path, where it was like you had enough with producing these kinds of shirts that maybe didn't have any meaning or value to them to you, to creating something that actually did.
Totally. And it makes such a big difference in how you feel with your work. Like, I was feeling kind of depleted, and like what I was doing wasn't making a difference. And at the end of the day, like, I'm still making t-shirts, but I feel like I'm making an impact on people through the messaging on my clothing and educating people. And it just adds so much more meaning to your day-to-day life than feeling like you're contributing to something bad, you know?
Right. Well, everybody needs to wear clothes.
Yeah, definitely.
And
you
not
can't
everybody,
get around that.
Yeah, not everybody's like me, where they want to wear the same exact shirt every single day. So your clothes, for a lot of people, it means something. Like it is a symbol of what it represents to you. And whether that's Gucci or these like high-end brands, or it's a brand that's more sustainable and like yours has a message behind it. What are some of the messages, because I know you put a lot of thought into them, that are put into the clothes that you make?
So every collection for Daizy is designed around a different theme. And a lot of the times the themes are something that I'm discovering or wanting to share or going through in my life. Like there was the Speak Up, Speak Out collection that was all about giving women a voice, especially like with this whole Me Too hashtag, and a lot of women are coming out as assault survivors. Like, this line was kind of about them having a voice and being brave, and also just about women in general who are often told to be quiet or silenced. I mean, so many times in my life as a young adult, or in my career as somebody who's very vocal and opinionated, I was told to be quiet. And this collection was just kind of like about women using their voice and being loud. And it has different phrases on it like speak up, speak out, or she will not be silenced. And then I designed the artwork, kind of tied it in with the phrase. And then my next collection this past summer was the summer of self-care. And after the entrepreneurship life, I was like a couple years in, I realized I was way overworking myself and I was exhausted. And I looked at my life kind of from the outside and it looked like I should be like the happiest person in the world. Like all these good things are happening, but I was really stressed and really like at some points feeling depressed. So that collection was very cathartic for me to design and really reflect on like what mattered. Like there's phrases like magic in the mundane, there's like a ton of them, like just different things to remind me like it's okay to like log off of your phone or, you know, take time out to care about like your physical being. And then this past collection, I've designed so many collections about different themes. I could go on forever. This past one was all about sisterhood and unity and diversity and celebrating that within feminism. So
that's amazing. Yeah. It's great to actually have. I like that each one has a message behind it. And it's not like you're putting them out every single week, every single day. It's like this is a collection that means something that's going to last a long time. It's not something that's just ephemeral. It's here and then it's gone the next day.
Totally.
When you're creating slow fashion, what does that look like? How I know you said that you are very slow to not produce mass batches of clothing. What does that mean on like a yearly basis, and how do you see yourself moving slower but also effectively? Because obviously if you move too slow, then you don't have a business.
Yeah, I mean, with our strange made to order model, we've been learning as we go, and we really have to market ourselves as a slow fashion brand because it literally is slow. And it takes time. Like our orders can take 3 weeks to a month to ship if there's a lot of orders coming in. And I mean, our production team, like we've been working with them for the past few years and they're amazing. But, you know, whenever we have a surge of orders, let's say a celebrity posts a picture in one of our shirts or something, it's been difficult finding the right balance with the supply and demand. Because, okay, like maybe sales pick up for a few months because of something, you know, something like that happens. And then they'll go back down, and we're trying to balance like how much we should create and not waste. So it's been difficult, and it's something we're working on continually, especially since we have so many different colors and everything is custom made for Daizy. Like I told them I want a short sleeve sweater and they make it. I pick the Pantone color and they make it. So everything is like very custom made and done in such small amounts. It's a learning process, but we've been, you know, working through it, and we hope to be an example to other companies that are wanting to do something similar.
Is there a pressure for you to try to scale up things and make this big business? And that's often the trajectory that a lot of companies take, and a lot of them have it as that's the stock template. That's what everybody should try to get as big as we can so then we can sell it to somebody and then make a bunch of money. And then not to say that everybody's doing that, but oftentimes that's what happens both in startups and in apparel and fashion. Do you see yourself scaling up when needed, and how do you feel about keeping things small and intimate? Like, is this even an idea that could scale up?
I mean, I have that conversation with myself all the time. Of course, like a part of me is a very driven person. I want to like become as big and popular as a brand as possible. And then other times, like I do question like if that is going to hurt our sustainability practices. It's hard to tell. I mean, we've been growing slowly and we've been comfortable with that, and we've been able to sustain a small team, and that's really cool. Like in some ways, like I like love the pace we're at right now, but of course, like it's so hard as like a business person. You want to grow. And you know, maybe we could figure out a way to really make it work on a larger scale, and that could show other companies the right way to do it.
Yeah.
So if we can have a bigger impact on both the women that love our brand, wear our shirts and feel empowered, and other companies, that would be awesome.
What's your message to the larger companies? Is it possible for these companies to scale back in a way that would be sustainable and ethical? Because it seems like they're a lot of them are just trapped into trying to make board members happy, right? If they don't see growth every single year, then somebody's getting fired.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard when you've built your company to a certain point and you have a new threshold of what profits you need to sustain it. So, yeah, I mean, these companies need to make a change. Like our planet that's what sustainability is. It's not sustainable. The practices they're doing right now, they can't continue to do this. But yeah, I get it as a business when you hit a certain point, like to make those decisions, like they need to make major decisions in order to be more sustainable and to be more ethical. I mean, you can create things outside of the US, like all of our stuff is made in LA, but you can participate in fair trade as well, like working with people in a different country, if they're being treated fairly and they're in a safe work environment and they're being paid fairly. But again, these companies have just gotten too big. But they need to make a change.
It seems like it needs to come from us. It needs to come from consumers, and people need to say, hey, I've had enough, because for every time you walk into an H&M or one of these stores that promote fast fashion, then you're supporting a company that doesn't use fair and safe practices.
Exactly. At the end of the day, consumers have the power to make those decisions. So if this big company, H&M, Zara, sees that people are becoming educated on fast fashion and they're choosing to support companies that are having more sustainable production practices, they're going to have no choice but to follow suit. So where you invest your money is a vote for what kind of future you want. I know that's a phrase that's tossed around the internet a lot, but it is so, so true. And whether you're supporting like a small brand like ours or a bigger company trying to do things better, like that's where you need to put your money and not in these companies that are doing it the wrong way. As tempting as it is to buy the $2, $3 tank top, it's just a bad decision for the world.
There's a reason why they're that cheap.
Yeah.
It's not.
Somebody's paying a price.
Yeah.
It might not be you, but somebody else is.
Yeah. I've got a video that's coming out over Black Friday, and this is probably going to be released well past it. But it's just about like this idea that it's very easy to get caught up and swept up in the sales and 70, 80, 90% off. And I think if we take a more of a true minimalist approach where you actually like value the material objects and aren't like just throwing things away every other month, then you won't get swept up in these sales and the urge to buy more stuff.
I mean, when I was younger and H&Ms were like just starting to like pop up all over the US, I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, like I was a starving college student. I could finally like get all these different outfits. And it got to a point where I just kind of like saw clothes as like, it was like a piece of trash after a couple wears. Like it was literally nothing. It meant nothing to me. And as I got older and I started to realize like how messed up the fast fashion industry is and started to support small businesses, I would actually feel good about buying something from a small business and supporting their dream and their hard work. And I would actually treasure that piece of clothing or that accessory way more than some throwaway piece I got at a fast fashion store. And I even started to dislike every time I would put something on that was from Forever 21, I like wouldn't even feel good about my outfit that day, you know? And instead of like putting something on where I was like, I felt confident, and if somebody asked me where that was from, I got to tell them about some cool new business instead of saying, oh, it's from Forever 21.
Right.
It was so much cooler. And nowadays that like you're sharing your outfits on social media all day, like how much better is it to tag like a cool small fashion brand that's gonna be so excited that they saw you in their clothes and repost it and actually appreciate your business than tagging Forever 21 in a picture, you know?
Yeah, it is interesting that you even mentioned like the feeling that you get when wearing the clothes, because I think it's something that's important to focus and recognize for us as consumers. Is how do you feel when you're in line about to make a purchase and you buy something? And then how do you feel as you're walking out the door? And then a week later when you've got that thing, and you know, for so long before that you're like, I need this thing, I gotta buy it, I gotta get it. And then you finally get it. And then a lot of times buyer's remorse sets in and we're not happy with our purchase. And so many of us are paycheck to paycheck. Like 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And it's just a lot of us don't have the money to buy all the time. So it's much better to buy smaller amounts of items, maybe higher quality. They're going to last a longer time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something I've noticed since I've been shopping small more and supporting other female-owned businesses. I don't get the same buyer's remorse. I usually like the item because I saved up money to like spend it on something nice that I loved. And I also felt good about my money was going directly into this person's pocket and not the pocket of all these corporate CEOs. Like it felt good. Like everything about the purchase felt good.
How do we go about finding these brands? Obviously, we can check out your brand.
DaizyLA.com, DAZEY.
Exactly. We can do that, which I definitely encourage people to check out. What are some other ways besides thrift shopping? Like, how do we know if we're supporting a bad brand or good brand? Because a lot of times the brands that aren't ethical, it's not very clear from their branding and how they push everything out. Even though they don't say they're sustainable, they have this happy, cheery, beautiful ads that make you feel like they're good people.
Yeah, what do they call it? Greenwashing? Like all these companies that are trying to make everything look green and ethically made that aren't really. I mean, that's more in like the like home product, like cleaner world.
Yeah, the food has a similar thing where everything's all natural. And what does all natural mean?
Exactly. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways. I think social media is a great way to find small businesses because it's an amazing tool that small businesses have to market, even though they don't really have a marketing budget. So a lot of small businesses are on social media. Look at hashtags. Look at hashtags slow fashion, ethical fashion. Usually if you're following one slow fashion brand, Instagram can recommend some other ones to you. On Daizy LA, we don't carry just our brand, but we also carry brands by other ethically made slow fashion female entrepreneurs. So that's a cool curated space where you can discover new brands. We list all about their practices, where things are made, and about the entrepreneur, like right on the listing. So we're educating people about like, check out this brand. Another good way is there's this app. I believe it's an Australian app called Good On You. And they have, the whole app is about ethical fashion. And you can look up any fashion brand, most fashion brands, and they'll rate them like A, B, C, D, F, kind of on their production practices. And they have big brands on there. Some brands are worse than others. And then you can also discover new small fashion brands on that app. So that's a really cool tool to use.
That's something I want to do. I want to look more
Sorry,
into
it exists.
I've already not to make the app. I just do not want to make an app.
Yeah, no,
that sounds like a terrible
My
time.
boyfriend tried that. It's
really?
Very difficult.
I actually did a documentary on product design, and we actually interviewed with a lot of people at Airbnb, Twitter, Facebook, like about how they design these apps and these products. It's a tough crowd to compete with anytime you're trying to make an app, and it takes a lot of money. Engineering and creating the app itself is crazy expensive, and the amount that go to market, similar to a small business, the chances of you succeeding and thriving are so small. And I'd love to get into that with you in a minute, about just like how to make it as a creative, but I'm interested how you actually made that leap to begin with. Like, how did you go from being a designer to a full-time creative, somebody creating your own stuff?
Yeah, it's a scary thing to do. It was something I wanted to do. Every like young fashion designer, you ask them like, or somebody who has wanted to be a fashion designer since they were young, they'll always tell you, I want to have my own clothing line. Like, I designed clothes for my dolls. Like, I have that same stereotypical story. Like, every girl I met in fashion school wants to have their own line. And it kind of like, you start to hear that over and over again. And you're like, oh, that's not really realistic. Like, everyone thinks that they can have their own fashion line. So I kind of like put that dream in the back of my head and just decided to start working for other companies. And I originally got a degree in fashion design, but I've always loved art and I've always messed around on Photoshop. So I got an internship with a t-shirt company, and it had never dawned on me that I could do both art and design and fashion like fused into one thing. So after that internship, I just kind of was like, I'm going to be a t-shirt designer. And I ended up getting a job at that internship and working my way through just different companies. I was in San Diego at the time. I got a job with Macy's in LA, then Urban Outfitters. I was a job hopper. I'm totally guilty.
How did you like the corporate structure, the 9 to 5 type environment?
Looking back, it's totally not for my personality type, but I didn't know, and I didn't really give myself the option to think anything else was possible. It was that little dream at the back of my head. So I just kind of put my head down and worked. And I think that's why I hopped around jobs so much. Like, I was literally a design machine. Like, I would sit there all day just pumping out designs. And that's really hard to do. And a lot of these corporate companies don't give you time to find inspiration. They just expect you to like output all day long. And it was really draining.
Is that how you're judged, basically? It's just like the number of stuff that you put out?
Yeah, how well your designs sell and how much you're designing. And, you know, it was really rough. And I went from one job to the next, and luckily like was able to kind of like I found a lot of stuff through Craigslist, like really legit jobs.
I did early on. Yeah. I lived off of Craigslist. I was a bottom feeder. I was like, give me that $50 job.
I found like full-time corporate like jobs
really
via, like the Urban Outfitters thing was through a Craigslist ad. They were a private label for Urban Outfitters.
Wow.
And that was like one of my goals when I was younger. I was like, I want to design for Urban. And then that was miserable. My art director was terrible to me and like everyone on the team. And so I ended up leaving that to design for Hot Topic and Torrid, which actually had a really awesome company environment. They treated their employees like family. And it was so cushy and nice that I got really bored. I started like listening to podcasts about entrepreneurship. I started doing some secret freelance on the clock. I started posting my work online. Which I wasn't supposed to do. Like when you work for these corporate companies, you do not own your artwork.
Oh, so yeah,
you don't own your own artwork, so you can't really post it. Like you're
not even allowed to use it in your reel.
Yeah. I mean, you could put it in a portfolio, but they don't want you to even have a portfolio because that means you're trying to get other work. You're not even supposed to freelance. Like you're their property artistically. And I struggled with that, and I always kind of like tried to break the rules at companies I worked at, and I got in trouble. That Hot Topic is very corporate. They saw me posting stuff on Instagram, and that was it. So I was fired from Hot Topic, and kind of after listening to all those podcasts and sitting at my desk daydreaming was like, this is my shot. So I tried doing freelance, failed miserably, then got a job with a startup and learned how to start a business from the ground up. And then after a year there, I was like, why am I doing this for someone else? So I quit and started my own business. And yeah, I mean, I would have been terrified to do it if I hadn't gotten fired and gotten that experience from the startup brand I was working with. So
in a lot of ways, getting fired was one of the best things to happen to you.
Totally. And you hear that over and over again, but it's so true. It led me to where I am now. Because when you have that cushy corporate job, like I was a young designer and I was doing really well for myself. Like whether I was fulfilled or not, like it was still a good job and I was doing art and that was really cool. I probably would have never made the leap.
When you got fired and you attempted to do freelance, looking back, why do you think you failed in that first attempt?
Because I had no game plan. I just kind of thought I was going to make it work. I was listening to these podcasts of entrepreneurs like doing these amazing things. And I kind of like ran out of the gate like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm awesome, blah, blah, blah. And I had zero game plan. I hadn't built up a client base. And I was so used to that corporate paycheck that the stress in between freelance gigs, like I just couldn't handle it. And like looking back, like that's a part of the process. Like freelancing is a different world. Like there's going to be highs and lows and then you eventually will be fine. But I was so used to the consistency that I just couldn't handle it. And I think working for a startup was a really cool way to kind of have some consistency. It wasn't that corporate paycheck, but I was getting experience and I was able to do things that I was not able to do at the corporate companies where I was put in like the designer box. And I couldn't mess around with marketing, social media, photography. Like it was like you do your one thing and we don't want to hear anything else from you. So working with the startup is an awesome way to dip your toe in and like really get that experience that you don't get with your one job.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing example too of an alternate way out of a job that you hate. Because far too many times we hear the story of the person that's like, well, I just quit my job, or I got fired, and then I started working and everything worked out great. And it doesn't always work out great. I really encourage people to have a plan. If you know that you aren't happy in your job, then it's what steps can I take to make sure that when I do leave, I can be successful at whatever my next venture is. So it's saving up a lot of money. It's making sure you have runway for 6 months to a year, if not more,
Totally.
As much as you possibly can, given your salary. And then I think obviously living simply and making sure that you're not overspending while you're in that place of limbo, which I've been more than 2 times before. But I love that the other option that you provided, which is maybe, I mean, obviously it wasn't intentional for you, but you could intentionally leave that 9-to-5 job that's a little bit more rigid and strict and maybe doesn't let you work from home to a place where they are potentially more flexible, more work from home hours, more time to start your own passions and your side projects that eventually could then lead to your building your own thing.
Totally. Like it was like a total different world from the corporate. Like they owned my artwork, they owned my time. I wasn't allowed to freelance. When I was working for the startup, they totally encouraged me to freelance because they know they weren't paying me as much as like I could get paid working for somewhere else. So they were very chill about being more flexible and letting me work, like you said, from wherever I want and maybe kind of have like a little more schedule of my own. And I was able to save up money and build up a freelance client. Like you said, I saved up enough money to live, honestly, 1 to 2 years off of from the corporate job just because I was that afraid. Like I was very afraid. Like I would not have expected that I was going to be an entrepreneur and living this life that I do now. But yeah, saving up a lot of money gave me the freedom to start my own business and building up a freelance base. Like freelance kept me afloat the first 6 months of my brand. So that was also huge.
It sounds like you're very risk averse.
Yeah, which is not like a lot of people wouldn't like meet me and think that. I'm very like kind of bold and out there. But I don't know. I think it's like how I was raised. My dad's very conservative and he would have told me not to do any of this to begin with. Just stick with my paycheck. Of course, he's like proud. But yeah, like for some reason, like financially, I've been very conservative most of my life. Even though in other ways I'm like a little more daring. But yeah, it stopped me, I think, from doing a lot of things that I could have done. I wish I would have started it sooner.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of with you because as somebody who graduated with 6 figures in student loan debt, bought a brand new car, made terrible financial decisions in my life. Since then, I have become more risk averse and I am much more conservative when it comes to financial decisions, to the point where I'm not that strict, I would say. Like I don't have a budget. I don't count every dollar that comes in. I don't even set aside money for taxes because I just don't buy much stuff. Like
you just live below your means.
I just live below my means, but I am very risk averse now. I think it's about knowing which risks are worth taking. Starting a business could be seen as a risky opportunity, but I guess what's the worst case scenario that could happen? If you're not investing tons and tons of money into it, it's just your time, right?
Yeah. I mean, you just have to get a job again. It didn't work out. You're kind of embarrassed, but you're okay.
Was that the idea? Is that, I guess, like, if this doesn't work out, I could always get a job again.
Yeah. I mean, people get so in their head, like, imagining worst case scenario. And sometimes you just have to sit down and be like, all right, really, like, what is that worst case scenario? And is it really that bad? Is getting a job again that bad? Like, I had a decent resume. Like, that worst case scenario, that was what I had to do. And it could be embarrassing. And it was a little embarrassing when I got fired, failed at freelancing, and had to get a job again. But I was fine, you know?
And you also learn things along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And something I've learned a lot in my entrepreneurial journey is you can't always hold on to money and things so tightly. And sometimes by spending more money, you're going to make more money. And that was something that took me a long time to learn. It took me a while to hire my first employee, even though I really needed some help. And once I finally crossed that threshold and did it, I realized it opened up so much more time for me to make more money and spend time on marketing the brand. And now I'm all about people like putting like their money in the right places. Like you said, it's important to put it in the right places. But if you're so like, you're holding onto it so tightly, that money's not going to help you get more money. You're just kind of going to slowly maybe save money instead of focus on making money.
Early on, was it a grind for you? Now, I know obviously you have moments these days that you still work very hard and it can be very stressful. But specifically during the early years, how do you view that period of your life to get to the point where you were able to hire somebody to offload some of that work?
I mean, looking back now, my day-to-day is a lot more laid back, and that was done very intentionally because I did grind for years to a point where I started to feel burnt out. And I was doing everything I love. I was doing photography, working in fashion, social media, t-shirt design. Like I combined all my passions into one, but I was just working too damn hard. And that's why I had to, I wanted to do the Summer of Self-Care collection in response to that. And when I designed that collection, I took everything I designed the shirts seriously. And I've done a lot more curating like what is really worth my time. And when you get to a certain point and everyone's asking you to do stuff and your schedule is really crazy, like you have to sit down and decide what's the most important and what's worth your time. And sometimes that even means writing a list of like, okay, what are all the tasks that you have? And like, what do you get out of that task? Writing it down and crossing out the things that don't really matter that much, you know?
Right. Because even if you are grinding in the beginning and doing everything yourself, there's still only so much that you can get to. Even if you're working holidays and weekends and nights, even if you're burning yourself out, you still will not be able to do everything that you want to do. What were some of the things that became easy for you to cross off the list to say, this not as important right now as doing the actual design work?
I think when I first started my company, I wanted to do it all. And I had the energy to do it all. Like I was just so excited. And once you've been doing it for a while, it's draining. And I was able to kind of like write down the things that help my company, like some of the big projects we were working on. We have an ambassador program where people can like rep our clothes and make commission. We were focusing on Wholesale and our blog, and like we kind of like wrote down like our like big things that we were working on, and we realized that Wholesale was a fraction of the money that we were making compared to direct to consumer and our ambassador program, yet we were putting the same amount of effort into that we were these things that made exponential amount more money. So we just kind of decided to put it on the back burner and focus that energy instead into the things that made more money. Our blog, as much as I loved to blog about things and, share like images and thoughts on stuff, it just wasn't getting the views that was worth the effort that I was putting into it. And my time was becoming increasingly valuable as the company started to grow. And, more people are like asking me to do podcast interviews and pop-ups and this and that. So it's about making those decisions. And some of those will be to just cross it off the list and surrender it. If a wholesale person comes and wants to wholesale, cool, we'll let them do that. But we're not spending our time trying to get all these people. For the blog, instead of me spending all my time doing it, I found somebody to help me do it. It's good for things like SEO, and you really got to examine like why that is valuable. But maybe you don't have to do it. Maybe you can get some help with that. I don't need to be sitting around shipping. I need to be the face of my company, and I need to be showing behind the scenes, and I need to be connecting with my audience.
I think it takes experimenting, doesn't it? Because you have to try different things, and maybe you won't have the time to try everything, but you have to try to write a blog, see if that works out, do different iterations of it, maybe write guest posts for other blogs. And eventually you'll start to get some feedback from all the things that you're doing, right? Where you're like, okay, well, this actually isn't a great use of time right now. So maybe we side table it. Maybe we put this on the back burner so then we can focus on the most important things.
Totally. And what's really cool these days with social media is you can directly ask your audience, what do they like? What don't they like? why didn't they want to go check out that blog post? Like, I've asked my audience questions like that. I love to be really transparent and show the journey of running a small business. And people are like happy to help. They feel like they're involved with the brand, and they give me honest feedback that really helps us make big decisions.
Let's talk about social media, because it seems like that's something that's been very important to building your brand and communicating with your audience and also finding new customers and clients. Would you say that that is an essential component of what you do?
Yeah, everyone says not to put all their eggs in one basket. And we're kind of in a space right now where we realize we have so much emphasis on our Instagram. And that's been the center of our business and what has really given us any sort of success. So hands down, I had worked blogging back in the day when it was first coming out. So I had a little bit of experience with that. But starting my business and promoting it on Instagram and getting influencers to post about it, just creating really compelling artistic content and being very transparent about my journey as a small business owner is what built my audience. And those are my customers. Those are my core. Those are my people. And if you look at our analytics, it's 90% of the traffic comes from Instagram.
Wow.
So it's been really amazing. At the same time, I'm looking into finding other ways to sustain the business. What if something happens to Instagram? Everyone says this, what if there's some new platform? All of a sudden we're left in the dust. So we're trying to diversify a little bit.
I know exactly what you mean, because I'm in the same place with YouTube, and it's I diversify a little bit, but I think there's still something to be said of, if this is working really well and nothing else is sticking like this, then it makes sense to, for the time being, commit and invest in this. And then, I don't know, maybe dabble, like I said, and experiment with other stuff. But it's kind of hard to turn away from something that's working really well. If you have a really popular blog, it wouldn't make sense to stop writing for that blog.
Totally. It goes back to that, what are you putting your energy in, and is the payback worth it? And right now, the payback is worth it for social media. I post Instagram stories all day long just talking about, what this shirt design means, about slow fashion, about behind the scenes of our production office, behind the scenes of a photo shoot. The first thing, throughout my day, pops in my head is oh, should I Instagram story this? Is this going to be valuable to people? And I've become so accustomed to it. A lot of my day consists of writing really thoughtful captions and organizing my feed. And
it's a beautiful feed.
Yeah, thank you. Very neurotic about it. But what's cool is I have now a small team. So it's me and 3 other people. So they're handling a lot of the logistical things that I don't really need to focus on. I know what I'm good at. I'm good at creativity. I'm good at branding and marketing. I'm bad at logistics. I'm bad at software. I don't even want to know if there's something going on. So I found some people who are good at that stuff, people who are way more organized and almost keep me on top of things. And it gives me the freedom to focus on, being very creative and focusing on social media and Instagram.
Yeah, I think what you do great is the videos that you create on Instagram and the stories, and just the authentic communication with your audience, because I think that we're in a crisis of authenticity now. And Instagram, it's very easy to look cool, to play the part, to have that every buttoned up photo, but to be able to be authentic and real and kind of take away the gloss and the shine and say, hey, this is what it's really like. I think that's super valuable. And I think video is going to become more and more important as we move on, both in social media and just creative platforms in general, because you can't really fake video that much. You can a little bit, but it's so easy to see through it. You can tell if somebody's being a fake persona or to be on camera versus this is this person for real.
100,000%.
Yeah.
That's actually so funny you bring it up. That's the topic I'm currently working on for my next collection.
Amazing.
It's about authenticity and being real in this weird fake world of social media, and being vulnerable and how people really appreciate it and find it so refreshing. It's so easy to fall into that trap of looking at all these people's lives on Instagram, and everything looks perfect. They're beautiful. Their lives are put together. Sometimes I feel like I even, like will design my life to look a certain way. So I constantly have to remind myself, like, okay, remind people, like, yeah, this happens, like I tell people if there's like something going on with my business, like, hey guys, sales are really bad. I'm really frustrated. People are dying to hear that stuff because they're sick of everyone's life looking perfect and everything being flawless and curated. And we're able to do that through our captions and our videos. And I still love to make photos look beautiful and super on brand, but I'm able to balance that realness through our Instagram story and the messaging of our brand. But I've had to unfollow a lot of bloggers and people that are actually friends of mine, people that I know aren't actually living the lives that they're making it look like on Instagram. And it's so frustrating. I've got friends who are traveling the world and doing all this amazing stuff, making their lives look perfect. But I talk to them face to face and say, how are you? And they're like, Danny, I'm really depressed. I'm really stressed out. And I'm just sitting there like, you're making hundreds of thousands of little girls on the internet feel like shit because you're making your life a facade of perfection. And it's just really, it's weird being in this space where I kind of like live in both worlds, like consuming and creating the content and knowing these people who are the people living the perfect lives of Instagram and knowing that it's not really real and seeing people hurting from seeing this fake content. So I'm kind of trying to start a conversation around that and encourage people to be more real on social media and spill their heart out once in a while. I mean, people need to hear that stuff.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, because I don't think that we should be trying to escape culture or escape reality and go live in a cave somewhere. I think we have to work from within it, and we have to be a part of the conversation. And to be on Instagram or to be on social media apps might be a part of that. It may be helping to actually be like, hey, this is really how my day's going. Now, I don't know if we should be posting, post whatever you want, but for me personally, I wouldn't want every single post I make to be serious or thoughtful. There's a balance, right? Where it's like, hey, today's a good day. I had a lot of fun today. I think it's great to talk about that. But then don't forget that sometimes days are tough. And I think some people can get so much out of that. The fact that you had a tough day, that you're really frustrated, you're facing a lot of doubt. And I think that's actually going to build a stronger connection to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be a bummer all the time.
Right. Yeah.
But I think you want your social media to be a reflection of your real life. So much of our lives are digital and in person these days. You're kind of in this weird space. And some people take advantage of this coined term that's really terrible, vulnerability marketing, which is using your weaknesses or your sadness to like get fans or likes, and that's gross too. That's just as bad as posting the fake stuff. So
because it really is kind of fake in a way. If you're using it in a manipulative way, you're like, oh, this is going to help me build an audience.
Exactly. And I've seen some people do that, and I think people can tell, like, or at least they're starting to be able to tell.
Just a single tear running down their cheek.
Yeah, like I've seen it go really bad the other way. So I think it's good if people are doing it in an authentic way, and that's what I'm trying to do on my platform.
Yeah, if you're not real though, and not like the fake real, but if you're not really real online as well as in person, it's going to break you down. There's only so long you can keep up the facade.
Yeah, it's got to be draining. I can't even imagine.
How do you suggest people approach that to have that balance of being themselves online, but also, because you're in a challenging space, right? Because it's a personal brand. But you have your own identity, your own personal brand, as well as this brand that you've created. So it's like, how do you bring a voice into that is real and authentic, but it also has the qualities and the message that you want to stand for?
Yeah, Daizy is very unique because it's sort of a mix between a brand and a blog. And I very much am the face of the brand. I mean, I do the designs, I share my journey. And I'm a generally like upbeat, positive person. So even when I'm telling people about like the shitty things that happen in day to day, you know, I try to like have like a message behind that. Like, hey, like just want to let you know that like everyone has bad days and, you know, we'll wake up tomorrow and maybe it'll be better. So I try to like keep everything with like a positive spin on it. Like I don't want to just be like bitching all the time on social media because sometimes I see people doing that and like, you know, that in some ways like that's going to bring people down the same way that seeing everything glamorous and perfect is going to. I think it's just about being real. Like I have one foot in my digital life and one foot in reality, and I want them to mesh and feel authentic. Otherwise, it, like you said, it's going to be draining. Like when I go to write a caption that day, I think most people would just want to be like, oh, okay, like what can I muster out of myself that's happy and relates to the photo, instead of like, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now and I'm really passionate about like this issue. And I think people respond a lot better to a more authentic caption. Like they're getting really like savvy with this stuff. People can tell.
Right. So you don't exactly have to say, you know, a lot of times we put these self-limiting rules on ourselves, that this is a photo of me at the beach and now I need to have this be exactly about that experience. But it could just be a photo and then the caption is completely different. It's just a representation of how you feel in that moment.
Yeah, I think everyone has to go with their gut. If they're highly uncomfortable sharing that stuff, by all means, they shouldn't have to be forced to do that. But maybe like tiptoe in. Maybe if you're afraid of being on video, which a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with are, and I encourage them just to try it out, you know, like dip your toe in and see how it feels. And for me, it was something like being this open online was something that took time, but it helped my business a whole bunch compared to like just like trying to make it look like some big brand, you know, like having that real connection makes the online experience more enjoyable for everyone.
Where do you think you saw the biggest growth in terms of being a creative? I'm not talking about numbers, but more so like personal growth when you look back over the past 5 to 10 years. What for you has been the things that have really stood out as like this decision or maybe facing that challenge really helped me?
Yeah. I mean, I think the transition between designing things that had little to no meaning, and then when I first started Daizy, like it was more like my chance to be an art director and be creative. And then it slowly transitioned into being more mission driven with empowering women, because I had felt disempowered plenty of times in my life. And accidentally, by sharing my journey, a lot of women were telling me that they felt empowered to maybe start a business or do something like that. So there was, at some point around when I first started Daizy, there was a transition from it being just a t-shirt line into it having like a meaning and a purpose behind it. And that's what's given me the most fulfillment. Like if I was just making cute shirts, that would be cool. But being able to talk about these issues, like even with my most recent collection, talking about unity and sisterhood and diversity, like that's been really rewarding to me. Even if people aren't going to respond like as well as a collection about self-love or happiness, like talking about the things that I'm passionate about and having a platform to do that. I don't know if there's an exact moment where that happened, but to me, that's like what has given me purpose in my life.
It seems like having that message too also helped you to build a community where when you're starting out as an individual, it can be very lonely and very daunting to face this hurdle and this challenge of making it as a full-time creative. How were you able to build community and other, like a support network around you that maybe they weren't employees, but they were people who were on a similar journey or could also help you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of stories. Daizy is very much about community. One of the ways I've done that is by launching our ambassador program, because coming through this journey with my brand and myself, like people feel like they're a part of it. And this was a cool way to actually have them be a part of it. So girls post the shirts, they're able to talk about the messages on them. They're able to call themselves a brand ambassador, and they actually get commission if people use their discount code. So that's been a really cool way to get like our customers like feel like they're a part of our brand and something bigger. And another way I've done that is working with other female entrepreneurs in the fashion world. There's a lot of competition, especially pitting women against one another. And that was the opposite of what I wanted to do with my brand. So I worked really hard to do collaborations with other brands, whether that's a design collaboration or a photo shoot, or I literally carry products from other female-owned brands on my site. So I don't have to feel like I'm at competing with anyone, because we're working together. And through doing that, I've gotten to know a lot of female entrepreneurs and realized a lot of women were feeling very isolated working for themselves. And so I co-founded a female co-working space in downtown LA about a year ago. And that's been a really cool community. It's like a 3,000 square foot loft in downtown. I co-founded with my business partner, Taryn. And I work in an office space full of other small, creative female entrepreneurs, and it feels like I have coworkers again. Like, it feels awesome instead of working for yourself. So yeah, like, there's so much to the story, but like, those are a few ways I've really like embraced community in this world.
Hey, I heard this early on. It's like that you are the person that you surround yourself with. So the 5 people that are closest to you, you are going to mimic their traits, how they talk. You're going to embody their mindset. So if you're around people that are self-defeating, who don't believe that you can create something for yourself, then likely those people are going to bring you down. But if you're around other inspiring people who are doing something just like you or what you aspire to do, then they're going to help to push you and lift you up. And I think that's so important.
Oh, totally. I've always loved that phrase. And I think it's really, really true. Ever since I've been surrounding myself with more driven women, inspiring women, it's pushed me to do better. And we've helped each other along the way, whether it's, somebody has a connection that you need, or somebody has a tip, or you're able to help someone else out. Like, having this community of women who are working together towards something similar has made a huge difference.
Do you know The Dip by Seth Godin? Have you heard of it?
No, but I love his book, All Marketers Tell Stories. That was it made a huge impact on how I marketed my brand.
Yeah. He's got so many, I think he has
so many books.
18 best-selling books. He's unbelievable. And he's definitely was on the forefront of just marketing. His first book, I think, was Permission, or one of his first books was Permission Marketing, which came out in like 2001, right around like the whole internet boom, just talking about how you need to have permission from people in order to send them emails, right? Like, so basic, right?
Yeah.
And something that people still don't follow through with to this day, but it's about ethical marketing practices. But he also has a lot of books about being a creative and following an unconventional path. And his book, The Dip, which I've probably talked about over a dozen times on this podcast, is about how in the very beginning, and I think this is something that especially applies to those that are starting a brand or even a fashion line, it's incredibly exciting because you're doing the logo and the initial line and the website and all that stuff. And it's so much fun, and it's very easy. And then because everything is pure inspiration. But then you hit a point where you enter that dip and things are tough. That's where the real work kicks in. And his book was really all about, should you quit? Is that a time when you should quit or leave? Or is that a time when you should push through and keep going? Did you face a moment like that with everything that you've created, where you look at Daizy and you say, this is a really tough time, but I know I want to stick through? And how did you get through that dip?
Yeah, I mean, there was this one point, and this was right before the self-care collection, where all these amazing things were happening at once. And I had just bought a house, and that's been one of my dreams ever since I was a kid. Then I hosted an event a week after I bought that house at that house for Coachella. And then 2 days later, I went to Tokyo. And in the midst of all this, like, a bunch of stuff was going on with Daizy and with Biz Babes, the co-working space. And it also, like, all this amazing stuff was happening. But amidst all that, I was so drained and I felt depressed, and I beat myself up about it even more because I looked at everything that was happening and I was like, you should be over the moon. All these amazing things are happening, yet I felt defeated and crushed, and I just felt like I couldn't sustain this lifestyle that I was trying to live, pushing myself constantly. There wasn't a moment of rest. And yeah, as soon as I got back from Japan, released the collection, I just kind of changed how I do work. Like, I only give myself a couple tasks to do a day. Luckily, I've built my company. I've worked my ass off to get it to a space where it's pretty self-sufficient with an awesome team in place. And a huge priority for me right now is sustaining my brand and my energy and keeping my inspiration high. So I'm also focusing on like what gets me inspired, like walking around town, going to a coffee shop, listening to podcasts, reading books. Like that stuff I intentionally put into my schedule to sustain my energy and my passion for this brand that I love. But at that point where I felt at an all-time low, I felt like I just wanted to run away. And I remember when it really hit me, I was doing an interview and somebody asked me, oh, you just bought a house, you're traveling, you just launched this, that, like, how do you balance it all and stay so positive? And I just was like, is that what it looks like? Like on the outside, people thought, oh, this girl has it all together. She has everything you could want. And yet I was feeling miserable. And I just answered the question like really honestly. I was like, I'm not holding it together. I'm not balancing it all. Like things are happening, but like it's all coming to a head. And that was like a weird moment for me where I was like, wow, I don't want people to think that I have it all together. So that was a moment where I kind of committed to like being more real about like struggling through some of these times where I was feeling really down. And also just changing my lifestyle and getting out of that. And I think by slowing down a lot, I've been able to get to a place where I feel really happy. I've unfollowed a lot of people. I try to not be on the internet all day long. And by making these decisions, it's helped me hopefully get to a place where I can continue to do Daizy for years and years to come and be excited about it every day.
It sounds like you've been very intentional with how you design your life. And maybe it started with touching the hot stove and, you know, making your mistakes. But eventually it seems like you're getting to a point now where you can have that balance. You're not working too hard. And, you know, like any creative, I'm sure that there are the moments when you do have to put in the extra work. You have to work the weekends. You have to work the late nights. But all in all, when you look at it, it seems like you've achieved the kind of balance that you were looking to get.
Yeah, I found a lot more balance. And there's some guilt that comes with that. Like you feel like you should be working all day and you're like, I'm running a business. Like, what am I doing? But you just have to know, like, you're choosing like sanity and self-care and sustainability over everything crashing and burning. You know, you can work your ass off and then you hit burnout and maybe that's the end of everything. Instead of maybe slowing down and having more longevity in your career and your business. That's more important than having some crazy high and then crashing down, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a great place to leave this episode. Thank you so much for being here and chatting.
This is awesome.
It was awesome to hear your story. If people want to find you online, where should we send them?
Yes. So you can find my business at Daizy LA, DAZEY_LA, daizyla.com. You can find my co-working space at BizBabes, BizBabez. My personal Instagram is Danny Daizy, DANIDAZEY. I have way too many handle. That's half of them.
They'll figure it out.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of The Ground Up Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. This podcast is 100% ad-free and is brought to you by Patreon subscribers. If you want to get access to exclusive videos on filmmaking, podcasting, and much more, go to patreon.com/Matt Diavella. Every contribution will also help to keep this podcast ad-free, which is pretty damn awesome. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time.